Territory of India and Reorganization of States. Territory of India in Part 1. Article 1 to 4. There are 4 articles of the Constitution that deals with this. In the year 1956, the State Reorganization Act was passed. States which were classified earlier into 4 parts was done away with this act. The classification was Part A, 9 states that were governor provinces, Part B, 9 states that were formerly princely states, Part C, 10 states that were chief commissioner provinces, and some princely states that were the predecessors of union territories. Article 1. The first article itself starts with a conflict concerning the name of India. It says that India, that is Bharat, is a union of states. Even though we have a two-tier government setup, we have not used the word federal or termed India as a federation of states. Here federation means dual government, central government and local or state government. So dual government system that perform its function independently. Okay. The term Union of States was preferred because no state has the right to secede, no right to become an independent entity outside India. Our federal setup was also not similar to the USA because US Federation was a result of contract between formerly independent colonies which came together to form USA. Our federation is not the result of contract. The states and union territories are mentioned in first schedule. The term territory of India includes the states and union territories, but also such territories that may be acquired later. The Apex Code wondered that the usage of term acquired gives the right to state to use an expansionist foreign policy. The code termed the acquisition of foreign territories is done under the aegis of international law, and just the mere usage of term acquired doesn't confer the government a right to acquire territory. Article 2. This article deals with the admission and establishment of new states that are not part of India. This can be done through a law enacted through Parliament. Article 3. This article deals with domestic reorganization. The following can be done with the Parliament through the enactment of a law. Increase the area of state, diminish the area of any state, alter the boundaries of any state, alter the name of any state. There are 2 conditions mentioned as proviso in this article. These includes any bill seeking to do any of the following mentioned above can be done by introducing the bill in the either house of the Parliament after taking President's recommendation. Before any bill is enacted, it has to be referred to the legislators of the states being affected by the proposed change to extract its opinion. But that opinion is not binding on the Parliament. The matter of centre having such power over states was debated in the Constituent Assembly too. The Assembly remarked that use of this power should not be arbitrary such that it reduces the states to glorified municipalities. Regarding the consent of states, the Assembly remarked that the process has to be effective and should not be reduced to formality. Shouldn't the consent be essential was also a question that came to the minds of the constitution makers, but it was observed that if the consent was made essential, then reorganization would become an increasingly impossible venture. Most reorganization in India has been carried out through a consensus. Consensus means agreement in opinion reached by group. Like the linguistic reorganization, preservation of tribal identities, addressing development deficit, etc. Since everywhere in the article the term state is mentioned, then are union territories not covered in the exercise? The answer is that the term state includes union territories, but in the proviso, the term state doesn't include union territory, and thus the opinion of the union territory legislator, if existed, is not necessary. Berubari Union Case. In 1958, an agreement was signed between Pakistan and India to transfer some land to Pakistan in exchange of some territory. This was the Berubari Union Case, where the question revolved around whether the union government needs the approval of Parliament to conduct exchange of territory between countries. Thus, under Article 143, that deals with the power of advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, the court opined that the legislative action is required in such actions taken by the government. Additionally, the courts also said that to give effect to such treaties, they cannot be covered under the procedure laid under Article 3, and a separate constitutional amendment has to be brought to bring into such effect. Hence, 9th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed. Thus, in recent times, with respect to the issues of enclaves in Bangladesh, the 100th Constitutional Amendment Act 2015 was passed by the Parliament. The 9th Constitutional Amendment Act was facilitated the secession of Indian territories of Berubari Union in West Bengal to Pakistan as provided in the Indo-Pak Agreement. The 100th Constitutional Amendment Act came effect to acquiring of certain territories by India and trample of certain other territories to Bangladesh in pursuance of land boundary agreement. Article 4. It states that no such law made for dealing with matters related to Article 2 and 3 shall be deemed to be a constitutional amendment under Article 368. Language as a basis for state reorganization. In independent India, the principal basis for reorganization of state was language, which was thus a break from colonial organization of states, which was based on administrative convenience. But before coming to the basis, there was much debate among national leaders regarding the basis for reorganization. In the 1920s, there was more or less of consensus in the Congress that language should be the basis of reorganization, and later even Gandhiji organized the Congress into Pradesh Congress committees on linguistic lines disregarding the colonial organized boundaries. But post-independence, Nehru witnessed the horrors of partition and became opposed to the idea of linguistic reorganization. He stated that there were numerous languages in the country, and thus reorganization on those lines would give rise to Lilliputian states, trivial or very small states. Thus he has focused more on creating national identity rather than linguistic identity. Since language was a strong binder and created a strong sense of identity, a state reorganization based on language would lead to a slippery slope where even demands for secession may be justified as seen in Europe. Another concern was that the language can also be basis for raising secular demands like employment, subsidies, etc. that could create xenophobic demands against people from other states. But another contrarian take is that on what basis, apart from language, could the state reorganization be carried out basis of religion, caste, etc.? A language is more secular basis for reorganization than any other identity and hence was preferred. Another benefit could be that it would make the task of educating children in their mother tongue easier. A similar benefit is that masses can take part better in administration if the language used in the native language. Similarly, it also ensures regional language are preserved, promoted and enriched. Nehru's opposition to linguistic reorganization. It would spur further such demands due to the large number of languages in country making governance very difficult. It would stall the process of building national identity and focus on linguistic identity may stall it. It could threaten national identity since language is very strong bond and hence may lead to fears of secession as seen in Europe. Languages becoming a channel for expressing secular demands in case of unemployment, subsidies, etc. Cases in favor of linguistic reorganization. If the states were multilingual, it would become difficult to administer them. Education in mother tongue helps in personal development. It further helps in development of regional culture and language. Masses can participate in democratic culture, secular basis of reorganization that transcends identities like caste and religion. Commission investigating state reorganization. Toward the end of 1940s, many demands came forward demanding states to be organized on linguistic basis. But the most prominent was the Telugu-speaking areas in Madras state by stalwarts like Swami Sitaram and Potti Sriramalu, which went on hunger strike and finally sacrificed himself. Thus, in 1953, the state of Andhra Pradesh was created as the first linguistically organized state in independent India. In 1936, Odisha had been organized on linguistic basis. Thus, S. N. Dhar Commission was appointed in 1948 to examine the issue and thus suggested administrative convenience as a basis of rejected linguistic reorganization. Later in 1948, the JVP committee was created under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and Pattabhai Sitaramaiah. And it also rejected the demand of linguistic reorganization. But till then, critical mass had developed that was demanding linguistic reorganization. Ramchandra Guha in the book India After Gandhi states that if Nehru was the maker of modern India, then Potti Sriramalu was the marketer of modern India. Thus, in 1953, the first state reorganization commission was established with Fazl Ali as the chairperson and Ken Panikkar and H.M. Kunzru as other members. It accepted the linguistic basis with some caveats. These caveats include not using the linguistic basis that would threaten the unity of the country. It would further reject the principle of one state, one language as seen in the case of Hindi. Economic and financial viability should be a viable unit for planned economic development. It recommended 16 states and 3 union territories. The union finally modified that into 14 states and 6 union territory. It gave away with the earlier four-fold classification as seen in the British era. So Dhar 1948, no linguistic reorganization based on administrative convenience. JVP 1948, no linguistic reorganization. SRC 1953, linguistic reorganization with some caveats. No one state, one language. Government's response to reorganization demand. Provision of development packages if the demand for new states stems from a development deficit. Provision of autonomous council if the demand is regarding more democratic rights as seen in Darjeeling through the Gorkhaland territorial administration. Awarding 8th schedule status to the language if the demand for new states is due to linguistic basis. Provision of development boards if there are claims of uneven development as seen in the provision of Vidarbha Development Board. Provision of autonomous state status within a state as seen in Meghalaya within Assam through Article 244, which was later converted to full-fledged state in 1972. Note, if all states were nations, then 10 Indian states would occupy the top 21 countries on the basis of population. Thus, argument of small states keep coming up. Questions of small states and argument in favor. Administrative convenience is cited as a benefit. A large state has various terrains, development priorities, and thus needs multiple perspectives in a single state to bring about equitable development. This is an onerous task. Onerous means burdensome and difficult to endure. And thus a small state is more homogeneous in nature, and thus the planning and development exercise is relatively easier too. The smaller states have historically had higher growth rates. In retrospect, in case of Punjab and Haryana, successor states like Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh, etc. The capital in smaller states is much nearer to the population and hence more democratic participation can be expected, but this has not beared out in reality. Issues with small states. The first issue is defining what constitutes as a small or large state. Should the population of the state, land area, or both, or any other criterion should be used to define the threshold? The center state or any other criterion should be used to define the threshold. Interstate issue, border issue, water sharing issue would erupt and managing interstate relation would get difficult. It might amount to undoing of Sardar Patel's good work and going back to pre-independence days of making smaller territories. Smaller states do not guarantee human development and other preoccupied states like existing resources. Sound planning. Sound planning means policies and procedures for proper coordination between financial areas of business. Proper implementation, incorruptible bureaucracy, proper training to officials imparting the missionary zeal, grand vision of the leader, etc. etc. Thus, the size of state or it being small is not the only indicator of state's destiny. Thus, even small states are found at the lower end of the human development ranking. Additionally, small states have issues of low resources mobilization, problems of creating new infrastructure like new capital, and in retrospect require much more central assistance in handling exigencies like left-wing insurgency as compared to larger states. The argument that smaller jurisdictions lead to better growth cannot be maintained if we consider that such small jurisdictions already exist as districts, panchayats, urban local bodies, etc. And thus any such reorganization should be prioritized there first before going for state-level reorganization. Thus democratic decentralization should be first line of action, followed by provision of adequate funds and empowerment with functions and functionaries. Here, democratic decentralization means distribution of power and responsibility and authority of decision making to the lower level of governance. Case of Uttar Pradesh. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was apprehensive of making Uttar Pradesh as a single entity as it was a large state both in terms of population size and territorial size. Apprehensive means anxious. He proposed dividing UP into 3 states. His argument was administrative convenience, disproportionate influence in national politics, and better representation of minority interests. The states has been proposed in recent times to be split into 4 states, namely Harit Pradesh, Awadh, Purvanchal, Bundelkhand for administrative convenience. Though questions of economic viability still remain. Apart from this, if smaller jurisdictions are a solution, then more districts should be made because the population increased from 13 crore in 1990 to 23 crore in 2020, while the district increased from 63 to 75 only. Thus, increasing the grassroots participation of people would require more districts. Empowering the local bodies too can be done before jumping to the conclusion of dividing the state and terming that as a panacea. Panacea means hypothetical remedy for all ills or diseases. To the problem of governance deficit, if the large population of India is an asset, then the same can be said of Uttar Pradesh. Moreover, since the state has a large population share, thus its population enjoying greater representation cannot be termed disproportionate, rather it is democratic right of the people. Case for second reorganization commission. There have been demand for new states such as Kaushal, Odisha, Kodagu, Karnataka, Vidarbha and Konkan, Maharashtra, Bodoland, Assam, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Mithilanchal, Bihar, Gorakhland, West Bengal. Thus, when such demands arise, the government at the union level sees these demands through the political lens rather than the nationality and modern scientific criteria that is expected. Thus, a second SRC would help us evolve a rational, scientific and objective criterion towards such demands. The process of state reorganization is an evolving exercise and not a one-stop exercise, and as the demand for statehood arise, they have to be examined properly. 30 years of LPG reforms has brought about many demographic, economic, social and regional imbalances and allegations of regional neglect. Population in certain states has grown very large, leading to concerns about governance. Thus, these reasons provide enough rationale for the government to consider constituting a second SRC. Delhi's demand for statehood. There have been demand for the leadership in Delhi to get its statehood. There are similar demands with respect to Pondicherry too. Though the demand is not very popular among the masses, it nevertheless needs examination. Arguments in favor. Delay in decision making. The central government in Delhi is responsible for police, public order and land, while the state government has also has power and even lieutenant governor has some responsibility. Since the responsibility is fragmented, the accountability is fragmented too, leading to delay in decision making. Population. A large number of states have population less than that of Delhi and are still full-fledged state and hence give credibility to the demands. But if we take the population argument to the extreme, then many metropolitan cities have population more than some small states and hence should they too be made a state. Arguments against national capital. Delhi is the national capital of country and hence holds a sentimental value for all Indians. Thus, the capital cannot be made the property or entity of a certain section of population only. Financial viability. Delhi is urban agglomeration, and whatever industries were present have been slowly shifting out due to population norms. Thus, the states would increasingly depend on central transfers. Since it would remain a capital, lack of financial resources would affect the provision of civic amenities, and to maintain the same level of services, taxes on the citizens would have to be increased. Resources dependency. The state would have to depend on other states for water, power, etc. that are assisted by the union government now. Thus, instead of making Delhi a state, steps like empowering the elected government and returning the lieutenant governor back to nominal status, devolving extra power to the Delhi government that are now existent with the union government can be considered. Devolving means pass on to another. Reorganization of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana creation. Telangana was carved out of Andhra Pradesh through the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act 2014. The demand for the state of Telangana was even there in the 1950s when the state of Andhra Pradesh was created. People in Telangana felt that their interest might be overlooked in the joint Andhra Pradesh. During these times, an informal agreement was signed, namely a gentleman agreement between the political leaders, providing assurance to Telangana's leaders that their concerns regarding job, education, etc. would be taken care in the new state. Moreover, the demand for Urdu to be recognized as an official language also emerged. It was also committed that when the Council of Ministers is constituted, a certain number of members would be from Telangana in the ratio of 60:40, where 60% of members were be from Andhra Pradesh and 40% from Telangana. But issues arose due to the half-hearted implementation of the agreement. Thus, many agitation means disturbance, arose to demand separate statehood for Telangana, and the B.N. Sri Krishna committee was formed in 2010 to look into this matter of statehood due to development deficit. The committee suggested that as much as possible, the state shall be kept united, and regarding the development concerns, an empowered development council for Telangana can be formed within the same state. It also suggested division of state in case of unavoidable circumstances. Thus, the state was divided and Telangana was formed through the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act 2014. Its feature were Telangana state would be created with 10 districts. Telangana state would be created with 10 districts. Hyderabad would be joint capital for a period not exceeding 10 years, during which period Andhra Pradesh would set up its own capital and Hyderabad would become the capital of Telangana. They would have a common governor for some time to come, and the common governor was given unique responsibility for law and order, security, allocation of government buildings, etc. It also postulated a joint high court that has been divided now, just like as the governor was separated. Some constitutional issues arose on account of the governor have extensive powers that would have been conferred to the state government's domain. While such powers have been vested to the governors of certain states, but these governors derive their power from the constitution and not an ordinary law. There is Article 371D, which contains special provision for Andhra Pradesh that got split between the two states, which got amended through the Act itself. This raised eyebrows as an amendment had been done through an ordinary law. Article 4 talks about implication arising out of state reorganization and how amendments to deal with those changes are not to be considered an amendment under Article 368. Note, the Apex Court has also ruled that the bill, after being returned by the state legislature to the parliament, need not be put again for a vote at the state legislature for a resolution, even if there were far-reaching changes.